Daniel Warner's family has been fishing Shinnecock Bay for over 200 years. But at 25, he is one of only 4 men his age trying to make a living as a bayman.
I grew up, on a boat my whole life. It's in my blood. I'd go out with my dad, my grandfather, and it's just something I love to do.
But like other fishermen, Dan may have to leave Shinnecock because, quite simply, the fish and shellfish are disappearing. The culprit? Uncontrollable growth of algae, called algal blooms, which are killing the bay. The State Department of Environmental Conservation says Shinnecock is in trouble, and for the past 2 years, it has shut down shellfishing in a third of its 9,000 acres because of the algal blooms. The fishing industry that once drove Southampton's economy has given way to tourism, which also depends on bay waters.
Located on Long Island's South Shore, about 80 miles from New York City, the town of Southampton has become a popular vacation spot. In the summer, the population here almost doubles to 100,000.
With the town's economic engine declining, Stony Brook University scientists have been trying to understand what's going on and what they can do about it.
0.416. Suddenly now we have one bay where there's 3 different blooms happening all in the same year.
Each is harmful, but one, known as red tide, can cause shellfish poisoning in humans, and that can be fatal.
And it took on a much greater sense of urgency, because here we have something threatening the bay that really threatens our own lives.
That urgency to protect the bay, as well as the health of their local community, has pushed these scientists to act.
Probably about 3 years ago was when the idea clicked that not only do we understand what the problems are, we do know how to fix those problems.
What they have found begins with a tale of 2 bays.
So the eastern part of the bay, exposed to the Shinnecock Inlet, seems to be well flushed, and the water quality there is quite good. Whereas in the western extreme, there's more housing, more dense development, and being further from an inlet, the water is more sluggish.
The bay's western side must then rely on filtering by shellfish. To stay healthy, it must be filtered over every 3 to 4 days. Only that can stop the runaway algae.
But scientists have found an 80% decline in shellfish over the past 2 decades, especially here in western Shinnecock. And that means filtering takes far longer.
We're looking at about 90 days, some estimates even over 100 days.
Scientists believe that by reintroducing shellfish and other organisms into bay waters, they can return to that 3 to 4 day cycle. Now, with the help of a $3 million grant, they have been creating clam sanctuaries, adding cherrystone and top-neck clams into western Shinnecock. They will also create oyster reef sanctuaries. The challenge is to make sure these shellfish reproduce and are not consumed by natural predators like crabs.
We need to be able to seed the bay with a spawner population and then have Mother Nature do the rest.
They will also be planting eelgrass to add oxygen to the water and create areas for fish and other organisms to live.
There's a clear link to the amount of seagrass that you have and the fish density that you have. So most people don't really care about grass, but they do care about fish.
But success means overcoming Mother Nature's unpredictability, changing temperatures, shifting waters, and storms like Sandy that could ruin the work they have done. Scientists around the country have tried to revive bays before, each with different degrees of success, so researchers here know success is far from certain.
They also know that even if they can get the science right, there's still another obstacle out of their control, and it's making the algae problem even worse.
The problem is we have too much nitrogen coming in from our groundwater.
Nitrogen from waste in underground septic tanks is mixing in with the groundwater and flowing into our bays. Algae then feeds on the nitrogen, fueling these blooms. Government agencies are in charge of setting the standards for nitrogen levels entering groundwater. Environmental advocate Kevin McAllister says to save the bay, those levels need to be lowered by an additional 95.5%.
What's in play right now is not good enough. We can turn on the tap and pour a glass of water and be safe, but at the same time, that same water quality could really kill the bay.
McAllister has petitioned the DEC to change the standards for nitrogen discharging into groundwater. But the DEC will not be developing new nitrogen standards within the next 2 years. In 2014, they will decide if it is a priority. Researchers and McAllister say newly designed septic systems is one way to control nitrogen. For most homeowners, they would be unaffordable, but there may be ways to share these new systems.
We can take 10 homes, instead of being $40,000 for a unit on one home, now it comes down to $44,000 per homeowner, and if we can get the state to give us some kind of tax incentive, we can make that more palatable.
It will take about 5 years before researchers can see if their efforts are working. And for Warner, their success is vital.
I mean, as of right now, it's getting harder and harder to make a living. I mean, I have all the licenses, but it's tough.
For the scientists working to save Shinnecock, it's not only a professional challenge, it's a personal one.
I've lived through seeing the brown tides come and seeing the baymen essentially be put out of work.
It's not only our research home, it's our home.